The leaders of South Korea, China and Japan in one room in time for Christmas. That's reportedly the plan, but with Seoul and Tokyo at each other's throats over trade issues, it's unlikely to be a festive spirit. That's if they meet one-on-one at all. Senior officials from South Korea's ruling party, the government and the top office discuss Seoul's withdrawal from its military intel sharing pact with Japan and ways to convince the opposition to back the government budget for 2020. Plus, seemingly unperturbed by North Korea's spate of missile launches, US President Donald Trump again stresses the North could become an economic hotshot in the region if, and it's a big if, it gives up its nuclear and missile programs. So, our top story this morning, the leaders of South Korea, China and Japan are likely to meet toward the end of the year for a three-way summit, but a one-on-one sit-down between President Moon Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe may not be on the cards this year, given the worsening ties between the two neighbours. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Reports out of Japan say the leaders of South Korea, China and Japan are likely to meet around Christmas time. Tokyo-based Kyodo News Agency on Monday cited diplomatic sources who said the three countries are coordinating efforts to organise a summit before the turn of the year. The move comes after last week's three-way meeting of their foreign ministers in Beijing. Responding to the Kyodo report, South Korea's presidential office spokesperson Ko Min-jung said a meeting has yet to be confirmed. While bilateral summits usually take place on the sidelines of the three-way leaders meeting, observers say a meeting between the South Korean and Japanese leaders may not materialise this time around. Ties between Seoul and Tokyo began deteriorating last year after the South Korean Supreme Court ordered Japanese firms to compensate a group of Koreans for forcing them to work for little to no pay during Japan's colonial rule of Korea. Japan opposed the ruling, insisting the case was closed after a 1965 treaty normalizing South Korea-Japan ties. Following Japan's series of trade actions against South Korean companies, which have been seen by international observers as a means of political retaliation, South Korea has consistently called for bilateral dialogue to try and resolve the issue. However, as the Abe administration keeps shrugging off the attempts, Seoul also decided to drop Japan from its whitelist of trusted trade partners as well. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Monday called on South Korea to maintain bilateral agreements reached in the past, despite strong criticism that he was the one to trigger the conflict, placing unilateral restrictions on South Korean companies over unresolved historical issues. Abe insists the lack of trust is down to South Korea.
Unfortunately, responses that undermine the trust and confidence between one country and another are continuing, which is regrettable. Therefore, first of all, we would like to request that country-to-country promises be honored.
He said the South Korean government's recent decision to end Josomia, a bilateral intel sharing pact with Japan, shows Seoul continues to breach trust with Tokyo. The Japanese leader made similar remarks last Thursday, calling on South Korea to work towards rebuilding trust and to stick to their bilateral agreement on forced wartime labour. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's ruling party, the government and the presidential office met this morning to discuss the aftermath of Seoul's decision to pull out of its military intel sharing pact with Japan. The three sides agreed that maintaining Jisomia is no longer in the country's interest after Tokyo removed Seoul from its list of trusted trading partners. Noting there's still 3 months before the pact actually expires, they said there's room for reconsideration should Japan lift its export curbs and come to the negotiating table. They also brushed off concerns the move will hurt the Seoul-Washington alliance. With the regular session of the National Assembly set to kick off in September, the three sides called for cooperation from the opposition bloc to work on pending bills related to people's livelihoods, as well as the 2020 government budget plan. Now, US President Donald Trump has again touted the economic potential of North Korea if it changes its ways. Speaking at the G7 summit in France on Monday, Trump appeared to hint at the possible sanctions relief and other economic concessions his administration would provide as long as the regime agrees to dismantle both its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Lee Seung-jae reports.
At a press conference alongside French President Emmanuel Macron at the G7 summit in France on Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump once again stressed the amazing economic potential North Korea has yet to realize, while also reiterating his good personal relationship with the regime's young leader.
I also say that, by the way, with respect to North Korea. Kim Jong-un, who I've gotten to know extremely well, First Lady has gotten to know Kim Jong-un, and I think she'd agree with me. He is a man with a country that has tremendous potential.
Trump also noted North Korea's geographical location between South Korea, China, and Russia, saying that barring flying, the only way to reach the South is through the North. Observers say President Trump's remark about the regime's economic potential seems to allude to the sanctions relief and other economic concessions Washington would offer Pyongyang if it agrees to abandon its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. While talks between the two sides have largely stalled since the two leaders' second summit in Vietnam in February, Trump continued to express confidence in Kim Jong-un, even dismissing the regime's recent series of short-range ballistic missile tests as unimportant. Asked about the possibility of another face-to-face with Kim, Trump said they will probably have one. Earlier at the G7, President Trump made similar remarks regarding the economic potential of Iran if it ends its nuclear program and becomes a responsible member of the international community. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, North Korea has been on a testing blitz in recent weeks. The regime launched even more projectiles into the East Sea over the weekend. These moves really fly in the face of what Kim Jong-un apparently told US President Donald Trump early this month, namely that the firings would stop once the joint Seoul-Washington military drills were over. And those drills ended last week. EG1 with the details.
North Korea fired yet another round of projectiles on Saturday, the 7th in the space of a month. This launch is different, though, coming after South Korea and the U.S. had finished their joint military drills earlier in the week, which the North had heavily criticized. According to President Donald Trump earlier this month, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un himself apologized in his letter for testing the short-range missiles and said that it would stop when the exercises end. North Korea expert Shin Bum-chul says the North is responding to changes in the regional security landscape.
I think the North saw the change in the situation, how its relationship with China has again strengthened, while the South Korea, U.S., Japan trilateral cooperation has weakened. Thus, it would think that if it pressures the U.S. a bit more, it can get a better deal out of them.
Shin also saw the launch as part of an effort to delay the talks. The leaders of Pyongyang and Washington had promised in their surprise meeting at Panmunjom in late June that they would restart their working-level talks in 2 to 3 weeks' time. Even in his letter to Trump, Kim said that he would like their teams to resume negotiations as soon as the drills are over. But last week, North Korea's foreign minister hinted that the talks might not happen, lashing out at U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for saying that the North will remain under America's toughest sanctions as long as it doesn't denuclearize.
The North is intentionally delaying the talks as it knows the U.S. isn't willing to ease sanctions as a corresponding measure for now. And it, too, is still not willing to give anything more than the Yongbyon nuclear facility. So the two sides are again back to square one. Because Pyongyang's ties with Beijing improved, the economic situation isn't so bad for the North, and so it thinks time is on its side.
The expert said, therefore, that the working-level talks are likely to be further postponed until one or the other side budges, and there is a high chance of North Korea continuing to fire its projectiles. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스.
Shifting gears now, after weeks of intense wrangling and some rather sensational headlines, the National Assembly here in South Korea has finally agreed on the date for a two-day confirmation hearing of controversial Justice Minister nominee Cho Kuk. It will be held next Monday and Tuesday, and this agreement comes after Mr. Cho revealed his plans to reform South Korea's prosecution and judiciary earlier on Monday. Our Kim Mo-kyun with the details.
President Moon Jae-in's pick for Justice Minister Cho Kuk will finally be questioned by lawmakers in the National Assembly for 2 days on September 2nd and 3rd. Rival party lawmakers of the Parliament's Judiciary Committee made the announcement on Monday after weeks of bipartisan wrangling over Cho's ethical qualifications. The ruling Democratic Party has been demanding that the confirmation hearing be held for 1 day, as with other ministers, but the main opposition Liberty Korea Party wants 3 days given the suspicions surrounding Cho. It's rare for a confirmation hearing to last for 2 days. If it happens, Cho will be the 7th minister-level nominee to undergo one. His nomination has been creating public outrage because of a series of scandals, including allegations that his daughter received preferential treatment in college admissions, as well as the suspicions about his family's investment in a private equity fund. Earlier in the day, the nominee reaffirmed his strong determination to explain all the corruption allegations against him and his family at his confirmation hearing.
If a confirmation hearing is held, I'm willing to reveal my flaws and limitations as well as explain my beliefs and thoughts. I'm also open to criticism. Once again, I apologize to the public.
Cho also announced his own vision of reform in law enforcement and the prosecution. He revealed a 10-page roadmap that includes giving police more investigative powers and establishing an independent unit to probe corruption among high-ranking government officials. Cho stressed that prosecutorial and judicial reform is an aspiration of the entire society, and he promised to work actively if he becomes Justice Minister to bring about change. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
South Korea's consumer sentiment fell for the fourth consecutive month in August, recording its lowest level since January of 2017. According to the Bank of Korea, the figure stands at 92.5 for this month. That's well below the 100 threshold, meaning there are more pessimists than optimists about the local economy. The figure is down almost 3.5 points from June. The central bank attributed the fall to Japan's export restrictions on South Korea, the escalating US-China trade war, and the worsening stock market performance. US President Donald Trump has expressed a willingness to meet with Iran's President Hassan Rouhani within weeks. This after French President Emmanuel Macron said he would like to see the two leaders engage in what would be truly historic talks. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Kim Dami. So, Dami, tell us more about this huge development out of the G7 summit.
Right, Mark. President Trump says he's open to meeting his Iranian counterparts under the right circumstances. Speaking at a joint G7 press conference with French leader Emmanuel Macron on Monday, Trump said he has good feelings about Iran, but he also noted that they have to be good players.
But in the meantime, they have to be good players. You understand what that means? And they can't do what they were saying they're going to do, because if they do that, they're going to be met with really very violent force. We have no choice.
Trump also stressed the U.S. will not lift sanctions against Iran to compensate for losses suffered by Tehran. Recognizing Iran's economic struggles, however, Trump said he might support short-term loans to Iran. For that, he said talks were already underway for other countries to provide Iran with credit secured by oil to keep its economy afloat. Macron said Rouhani had told him he would be open to meeting Trump, with Macron showing hopes for a summit between the U.S. and Iran in the coming weeks. Trump and Rouhani head to the UN General Assembly in September. Flames are spreading across the Amazon rainforest this summer, spewing millions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere each day. Leaders of the world's 7 richest nations have vowed to help Brazil fight the fires in the Amazon rainforest as they recognize the Amazon rainforest as the world's lungs. Kim Jae-hee reports.
The largest tropical forest in the world has been burning by wildfires for the 3rd week now, prompting world leaders to step up and call for efforts to save what's known as the lungs of the planet. The Amazon fires took center stage on the G7 summit on Saturday local time, as French President Emmanuel Macron declared the situation a global emergency.
The Amazon is our common good. The fires affect all of us. Regarding the Amazon, we will not only launch a call, but also launch action from all the world powers present.
On Sunday, Macron announced that the G7 had agreed to an immediate fund of at least $20 million to help Amazon countries fight the wildfires and launch a long-term global initiative to protect the rainforest. According to BBC News, more than 75,000 forest fires occurred in Brazil last year, the highest number since 2013. The Amazon rainforest covers at least 5.5 million square kilometers, nearly 25 times the size of the Korean peninsula. The rainforest is known to be home to a unique array of flora and fauna species. The Amazon River provides 20% of the planet's unfrozen freshwater as well. The forest is crucial to regulating global warming as it absorbs more carbon dioxide and produces at least 20% of the world's oxygen. The fires are not only destroying such important natural asset, but also releasing some 228 megatons of carbon dioxide, the highest amount since 2010.
Fires are directly burning into Amazon rainforests, and that releases the carbon stored in those trees. The carbon then enters the atmosphere as carbon dioxide or methane, where it contributes to the greenhouse gases that are causing climate change, bringing us a warmer and a drier planet.
International efforts to tackle the flames are ongoing, and amid pressure from the global community, the Brazilian government has deployed some 44,000 troops and military vehicles to help tackle the fires. The cause of the fire is yet to be found, but the scale and scope of the damage have already raised concerns over the impact on climate change and fight against global warming. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
The Walt Disney Corporation announced Monday that it will launch its Disney Plus video streaming service for a monthly fee of $6.99, a far cheaper price than its soon-to-be rivals, Netflix. According to CNBC, Disney Plus will exclusively stream its latest movies, including Avengers Endgame, Aladdin, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Subscribers will also be able to watch movies and TV shows in 4K. The service will debut in the US, Canada, and the Netherlands on November 12th. It will launch in Australia and New Zealand a week later.
Time now for our Life and Info segment, where we focus on information we do hope will be useful for your everyday life. And we start today with a warning of sorts to travellers. That's because South Korea's foreign ministry has issued a travel alert for all parts of Hong Kong. With increasingly violent protests continuing, the government on Monday issued its first level blue travel alert. The alert calls on all South Korean nationals in Hong Kong or planning to travel there to pay extra attention to their personal safety. The ministry added it will keep a close eye on the security situations and decide whether to lift or issue additional alerts. Now, starting Wednesday, customers at smaller banks here in South Korea will be able to change their direct debit payments online. The Financial Services Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service says they plan to offer the direct debit account transferring services for smaller banks through an account management website called PayInfo. Until now, customers of these smaller banks have been able to view or cancel their direct debits online, but couldn't change the account the money is sent from. Now they'll be able to make these changes for free through the PayInfo website or through mobile applications. Now, more and more Koreans are choosing to eat bread rather than rice, or at least more bread than rice, with bread lovers going on bakery tours even to taste the best of the best from across the country. However, a recent study has found that the sugar content in some bread, especially the cheaper, more well-known brands, is similar to that, get this, of soft drinks. Park Se-young with more.
Bread is popular both as a staple food and a snack. From the dozens of options at bakeries, customers tend to have their favorites.
My son tends to choose sweet ones, like cream-filled bread covered in chocolate.
However, customers need to watch out for the surprisingly high amount of sugar in bread. According to a study of 199 items from bakeries, supermarkets, and convenience stores, the average sugar content of bakery items was 23 grams. The World Health Organization recommends that adults eat no more than 50 grams of sugar a day. A serving of cakes contained the most sugar, followed by red bean bread and cream-filled bread.
Those that get used to sweet foods at a young age tend to refuse savory foods as adults. Sugar causes blood sugar levels to surge and can lead to obesity, diabetes, and metabolic problems.
In collaboration with the bakery industry, Korea's food ministry plans to provide more healthy bread options with reduced sugar. It also recommends that consumers check the nutrition label when buying bread.
Companies said they'll try to further extend the production of healthy bread. We plan to provide a guideline for the industry's sugar reduction.
Since healthy options are already available, education about eating habits at home and at school is crucial. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Now, before we get a weather update, the Seoul Metropolitan Government has introduced an additional feature to its unmanned parcel delivery service to better ensure women in the city are safe. Now, starting in 2013, the city government has been offering an unmanned parcel delivery service with a local logistics company. It allows women who live alone to receive parcels through an unmanned machine and pick them up at a time that's convenient for them. It was introduced to prevent crimes against women, as there have, unfortunately, been cases of robbers and even worse, disguising themselves as delivery men. With the new feature, users can also send parcels through the unmanned machines. Now, the city operates 232 of the machines. They are mostly located in residential areas that are home to a large number of one-person households.
Good morning. Those of you in southern regions will need to grab an umbrella on your way out. Central regions have been seeing light showers due to a weak trough of low pressure, while southern regions are being affected by an autumn monsoonal front. Rain in the upper regions should clear in the morning, while the chance for more downpours will continue into Wednesday for southern coastal regions and on Jeju Island. And for a closer look, rain should gradually let up from upper regions. The further south you are, the more rainfall you'll see into Wednesday. A look at your temperatures for today. Expect them to be a couple degrees lower than yesterday, and highs will range from 27 to 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon. And as for the weather outlook, wide temperature differences between lows and highs will continue, while afternoon heat will linger here in Seoul and its surrounding areas for the rest of August. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's where we're going to leave the news and weather for now on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. As always, plenty more coming up, including our next newscast. That's at noon Korea time in around an hour and a half from now. So until then, goodbye.